and curve, No Limit is indeed a masterpiece.
So now, let's move on to his second novel, which is
El Filibusterismo.
So before we proceed to the characters and the summary of the novel, let me give you a short history and background about the Elfin. So the same with Noli Me Tangere, it was also written in Spanish language. And did you know that Charles Derbyshire translated it in English? The title El Filibusterismo in English means the reign of greed. His purpose in writing the novel was to expose the ills of the Philippine society, the brutality, the corruption, discrimination, and the abuse of power by the Spanish colonizers. Rizal began writing the novel in Calamba on October 1887 while practicing medicine. In 1888, he was in London. He made some changes in the plot and in some chapters in the novel. When he went in Paris, he made some revisions and continued writing the novel. After that, he left Paris and went to Brussels due to the high cost of living in Paris. After a few months of staying in Brussels, he moved to Ghent. There has two reasons why he left Brussels. First was because of the cost of printing in Ghent was cheaper. And second, to escape from the enticing attraction of Petite Suzanne. On March 29, 1891, Rizal finished writing the novel in Biarritz. The same with the printing of Noli. Rizal also faced a problem in printing his second novel. Luckily, just like in Noli, there is someone who helped him, and that is Valentin Ventura, who gave Rizal the money in order for him to continue printing of the novel. Finally, on September 18, 1891, the novel was published in Ghent, Belgium. He printed two copies of it and sent to Hong Kong. He gave one for Basa and the other one for Sixto Lopez. Then, the original manuscript with Rizal's autograph was given to Valentin Ventura. Rizal dedicated the novel to the three friars known as Gomburza or ang tatlong paring martir who died unjustly due to the false accusation of the Spanish authorities to them as the instigators of the so-called Cavite Mutiny. Unlike in Noli Me Tangere, El Filibusterismo was more on anger, vengeance, and rebellion, so meaning it is less romantic than Noli Me Tangere.
After 4 years of Noli Me Tangere's publication, Rizal's mind had matured. It was what he saw in the Philippines during his 4 months visit, and what happened to his family after that visit when his father was evicted. Their house taken over, their furniture dumped into the street. Some members of the family were sent into exile, and one brother-in-law was denied Christian burial. That Rizal had come to realize that the attitude of the authorities and the friars on the granting of reforms was irreversible. All these and other happenings weakened his early enthusiasm, but deepened his insight. It was of this deeper vision that El Filibusterismo emerged. Rizal in his letter to Blumentritt explained the title of his novel. The word filibusterismo is very little known in the Philippines. The masses do not know it yet. The Manila newspaper and the Spanish use this word to describe those whom they want to render suspect of revolutionary activities. The educated Filipino hear its school. It does not have the meaning of pirate. It means rather a dangerous patriot who will soon be on the gallows or else a considered fellow. The novel El Filibusterismo is considered a timeless masterpiece as it digs deeper into understanding the internal and external struggles of each country's motivation, beliefs, and moralities by using almost real-life characters. This novel is one of the prominent and prolific literary works written by our heroic writer, Dr. Jose Rizal. Characters are often imposing satirical personalities to us. The novel is written in a character-based structure, highlighting its plot as direct associations during the Spanish colonial rule. The novel is about politically and historically driven fictional Philippines during the Spanish colonial period, inspired by the writer's current living conditions, views, beliefs, and ideologies. This novel aims at enlightening society and at bringing the Filipinos closer to the truth. This novel society is urged to open its eyes to reality. By reading this poetic novel, you can conclude that the sword is not the only one who can cut through the steel armor, but also words can shatter the pride of anyone in this world. It cannot result in a fatal death, but the wound it can cause will gradually devour you. If I'm a Spaniard and I had read his novel, surely I'll lose my mind to anger and grudge. I am thankful not only for Jose Rizal, but also for the people who fight for freedom in a war of words and thoughts. Even though it is not directly into war, the effect was very unburdened to the enemy. El Filibusterismo, a novel about the word war for freedom. According to Renato Constantino, the importance of Rizal's ideas for our generation has a twofold basis. First, the applicability to present day problems, and second, their inspirational value. Rizal holds a mirror to our faces and we see ourselves, our vices, our defects, our meanness. Because the conditions he described are the very conditions we see around us. And the characters he portrays are people we continue to meet, we readily respond to his earnest desire for the basic changes in our society and in ourselves. One hand holds a mirror to shame us, and the other points the way to our regeneration. Yet, the truth is that the mirror was not meant to reveal our image, but the image of the people and the society of Rizal's time.
Now that we have a background information about the novel, let's proceed to its main characters. First is Simon, a rich jeweler. He is actually the continuation of the character of Crisostomo Ibarra in Noli Me Tangere. Next is Basilio, Caesar's son. He was adopted by Capitan Tiago, and with his help, he was able to study. In the story, he is a graduating student of medicine. The third character is Isagan, Basilio's best friend and a poet. He is the boyfriend of Paulita Gomez in the story, but she breaks up with him for she believes that she doesn't have future with Isagani. So he dumped Isagani and got married to Juanito Velasquez, a rich Spanish man. So imagine kung gaano yan kasakit sa part ni Isagani. Moving on to the next character, which is Cabezang Tales, a former Cabeza de Barangay or the Barangay Head, also known as Matang Lawi. Next is Paulita Gomez, and she is actually the niece of Doña Victorina, and she regards herself as a Peninsulares even though she is a pure Filipino-blooded. And last, Tandang Seno, father of Cabezang Tales. When Sisa died, he was the one who raised Basilio. So now, let's move on to the summary of the novel. The story revolves around Simon, also known as Juan Crisostomo Ibarra in the novel Noli Me Tangere. After 13 years, Ibarra returned to the country as Simon. Using his influence, he encourages more corruption and more oppressive government policies so that the people will be more infuriated and it will trigger the revolution. One of his followers was Basilio, and the other people who were mainly from the exploited and abused victims by the Spaniards. Simon also made an alliance with Cabezang Tales, a former Cabeza de Barangay who experienced maltreatments from the friars. However, his first revolutionary plan halted because he heard that Maria Clara died. Later on, another plan was made after how many months? At the venue of the wedding reception of Juanito Pelaez and Paulita Gomez, he planted many explosives, enough to kill the friars and the government officials. A big explosion shall be started by the gift he would give to the newlyweds, a kerosene lamp with an explosive. As the lamp explodes, it will serve as a signal for the revolutionary groups to attack simultaneously all the government buildings in Manila. During the reception, Simon gave his gift, and before he left the venue, he leaves a piece of paper with the message, "You will die tonight," signed by Juan Crisostomo Ibarra. Meanwhile, Isagani was there standing outside the venue. Since he was Basilio's friend, Basilio tells him about the lamp and to leave the place immediately. Right after Simon left, Father Salvi saw the paper and he confirmed it was indeed Ibarra's handwritten. So the guests began to panic. Then, the lamp flickers. As it was just about to explode, Isagani ran and grabs the lamp to save Paulita's life. He threw the lamp into the river where it explodes. So in spite of what Paulita did to Isagani, the man still loves her. The next thing happened was they discovered it was Simon's plan and he was hunted by the Guardia Civil. He managed to escape but he was severely wounded. Carrying his jewelry chest, he went to Padre Florentino's house. Unfortunately, they found him. The lieutenant of the Guardia Civil told to the priest that he will come in the evening to arrest Simon. It was like they gave warning. They didn't immediately arrest Simon during that time. Simon then takes poison so that he would not caught alive. Before he died, Simon confessed his identity to the priest and his plan of revenge through revolution. The story ended with Padre Florentino throwing the jewelries of Simon in the ocean so that it can no longer be used to evil and greed. And that's the ending of the story.
My countrymen, I have given proof more than anybody else of desiring liberties for our country and I still desire them. But I place a premise the education of the people so that by means of education and of labor, they might have a personality of their own and make themselves worthy of liberties. So what is education? According to Pestalozzi, education is the unfolding of the natural, hidden faculties of the child. Froebel, after him, thought that it is the perfecting, advancing, and progressing of men from one stage of development to another. Following this definition of education, we shall later find that Dr. Rizal was a real educator. For the sake of convenience, we shall treat his philosophy of education under two headings. First, the mission of education, and second, educating the educator. How such a concept of education could be put into effect is a part of his philosophy of education. From the poem of Jose Rizal, education gives luster to the motherland, or through education our country receives light. He stressed the noble benefits of an enlightenment citizen. He even remembered all his sacrifices just to obtain education and its rewards. Through this poem, Rizal proved how much he valued education.
Moving on to our last discussion for today, which is the sociological theories. First, the functionalist perspective. According to a functionalist, the differences in power, wealth, and other rewards within the social structure are justified. Surely that these inequalities have a purpose and reason. However, as a consequence, the issues on the social class discrimination or classicism emerge. Just like in El Fili, the division of steamship Tabo into lower and upper deck shows the unfair treatment to people due to their social standing in the society. The conflict perspective. Karl Marx, a German philosopher, sociologist, political theorist, viewed religion as a tool of social control used to maintain the status quo in a given society. In connection to the story, it was indeed what the Spanish friars did to people. The novel El Fili shows how the Catholic religion influenced the political and social affairs. They used the Catholic teachings to manipulate and control those who were under them. Even the government back then was dominated by the friars. And last, the symbolic. Symbolic interaction theory is a sociology theory that seeks to understand humans' relationship with their society by focusing on the symbols that help us give meaning to the experiences in our life. In the story, I picked 5 characters that represent some people in the society. First was Simon. He represents the revolutionaries who opposes the governments. According to my readings, his death in El Filibusterismo tells the readers that Rizal doesn't support armed revolution. The second character are the Spanish friars, which represent the corrupt officials in the government who abuses their power. Third, Senor Pasta, an old Filipino lawyer who refuses to help the Filipino students in their clamor for educational reforms. He represents the part of the society that is only generous and sympathetic to the rich and powerful. Fourth, Isagani. Isagani is the symbol of the youth whose love for the country is great to the point of being branded as idealistic. Cabezang Tales. He personified a typical Filipino. He also symbolizes the natives and the Filipino farmers who experience abuse and maltreatments. And that's all for our discussion today.